Well, good morning and welcome to our session called Do It Right. I'm Brad Roy. I have the privilege of residing in Kalispell, Montana, and it's very nice to leave my wife with the snow and to be here where I don't have it right now. It seems like winter does not want to end. With us today is Pete Ronai. Pete is at Sacred Heart University. He's a clinical professor there. He has a master's degree in exercise science. He's a fellow of the American College of Sports Medicine. And he's just a wonderful technician in this whole area of resistance training. And also Kyle Kercher. Kyle has his master's degree in exercise science and sports psychology. He works in the Summit Medical Fitness Center with me in Kalispell, Montana. And we're really enthused to have him here with his great ideas and things that he's doing as well. And our third presenter, Ruegamer, unfortunately, he's with the Green Bay Packers, and they called him into a meeting today. So he had to stay up in Green Bay and was not able to join us. So we've revamped the session just a little bit. You won't miss out on anything. We're going to keep you active here in a little bit. I also have the privilege of serving as the editor-in-chief for ACSM's Health and Fitness Journal. And one of the things that we initiated a couple of years ago was a column called Do It Right. And Pete is the author of that column. And the reason we did that is that if I went around the room and asked 10 of you to show me how to do a particular resistance training exercise, I probably get shown at least 8 different ways of how to do that, and not all 8 ways are correct. And so the object of that column is to present a resistance training type of activity in each column and to really demonstrate how to correctly do that and to follow that up on the website with actual video so you can actually watch how that is done. So if any of you have ideas of different exercises that you would like us to tackle in the journal, we would love to have that feedback. You can let Pete know, you can send an email to me, or just shoot one through the journal, and we would be happy to address those topics, because I think it's a really, really important area. And that's really what has led to our session today, was to really hone in on a few exercises and give you some ideas on how to teach those correctly. We've implemented a program at the Summit Medical Fitness Center in Kalispell that Kyle's going to talk about a little bit here, called Competitive Edge, and where we're really trying to teach people how to do these things correctly. We've also taken the initiative to train our staff, so Kyle has put together a whole training program that we require our staff to go through to make sure that all of our personal trainers and fitness instructors are teaching these different exercises and activities the same way. And we know that they're doing it correctly, at least from our point of view. So with that, welcome to the session. Part of it's going to be didactic, kind of sitting here. Most of it's going to be out there on the floor, actually getting some experience. We have a big group, way more than we thought we would have, but that's okay. We're flexible. We'll make it happen and everything. So you'll get some activity along with the information you're going to gather. So with that, I'll shut up and we'll get Kyle Kercher up here to talk a little bit about our Competitive Edge program.
All right, welcome everybody. Like Brad said, my name is Kyle Kercher from the Summit Medical Fitness Center in Kalispell, where I lead a strength and conditioning program called Competitive Edge. We're going to talk about that today, as well as a lot of other different barbell training components. But what I wanted to start with was a picture. So this picture represents one of the fundamental challenges in our health and fitness industry, and that is how do we create more sustainable behavior change in a greater amount of people. You can view a picture many different ways, but what I see with this is people that aren't necessarily engaged with their program, they're not having a lot of fun, they're not connecting with others, and there's a great likelihood that they might not continue long term. So that's where Competitive Edge came in. We wanted to create a better program and bring premium strength and conditioning to the everyday adult, rather than just college athletes or professional athletes. So our 3 learning objectives today, we're going to start with an initial proficiency assessment, which Pete is going to take us through in about 15 minutes. Secondly, we're going to be going through a whole bunch of different lifts to look at teachable progressions for each one. Today we're going to be getting into primarily the deadlift, front squat, back squat, a variety of auxiliary lifts. And then tomorrow, we're going to be focusing on upper body and power exercises. Then thirdly, what we're going to start with is implementing a premium strength and conditioning program in your facility. There's nothing saying that this is the only way to do it, but it's a way that we've found to be successful, and I'm just hoping you guys are interested and going to share that whole competitive edge process with you. So at the summit, we have a lot of different services, clinical and performance-based, but what we're going to focus on today, on the left side, competitive edge. We have two types of adult training programs. One is called Barbell, which is going to be the focus primarily today. That's an hour-long sound strength and conditioning program that we'll get into a lot more details of. Then we also have a class called Metcon, which is a high-intensity strength-based training class. Then we have our Competitive Edge Youth Training Academy, which operates after school, and that's for middle school and high school students, speed and strength training. And then we also have a performance lab, which does a variety of different clinical and performance-based testing. So here's our space for our strength classes, 40 by 40. We put a lot of people through here in any given day. Earliest classes start at 5:30 a.m., go all the way through to our latest class, 5:30 to 6:30 p.m., with some high school training after that. But we get a lot of people through a small space, relatively speaking, of course, small. And then the reason why we're starting with Competitive Edge, even though this is primarily the Do It Right workshop, is that I really believe strongly that everything you guys learned today, whether it's here or elsewhere, needs to be practical, and you need to be able to apply it. So I'm hoping that as we go through this and the barbell lifts, that you're just constantly thinking of how can you take it back to your facility, your club, your personal training business. And even if you guys just pick up a couple things here and there, I consider that a success. So our Competitive Edge model is based on small group personal training. Back in 2016 when we started in February, the summit had a lot of personal training and a lot of group exercise classes, and then the other group of people that just come in to use the facility that aren't necessarily on a training program or connecting with people. So the benefits of small group personal training are that it reaches a much wider audience because it's a lot more affordable. So compared to our personal training prices of $50 or $55 a session, that's not very sustainable for that many people. So when you think of this, it's also more profitable for the business because if you think of 4 to 8 people paying $15 to $20 per class, the margins on that are really nice as well. And then both for the coaches, you guys, and the clients, I think it's a lot more fun. There's nothing wrong with one-on-one training, but you know that at times can get a little stale and it's not for everybody. So for the client, it's more fun. They're connecting with a few people. There's accountability when you have a group involved, the relatedness piece of that. And then it's also, I think, a lot more engaging and fun for the coach because you're getting to, maybe you're spending 15 seconds with somebody here, 30 seconds with someone else. You bring the whole group together for some of the teaching elements of the class, but it's just a really stimulating, engaging process for the coach. And then next up, we have our program structure. So we run our barbell classes in 8-week segments. So people continuously have to re-enroll. It's actually every 9 weeks because we have a week of recovery, but 8-week programs. So we structure those in 2 4-week phases. We have a hypertrophy phase and a strength phase. We have 3 days of workouts. So people, we have specific groups. So like you'll sign up for Monday, Wednesday at 9 a.m. or Tuesday, Thursday at 5:30 p.m. And then we have something on Fridays and Saturdays we call Open Gym, where we invite everybody from all the classes to those time slots. Friday we're 2.5 hours, Saturdays we're 1.5 hours. And that's a nice way to add a 3rd day of classes, which is great value for them without adding the staffing of having a whole another class for each section. Brought one of our programs right here. We print everyone a program, 11 by 17 sheet. We have day 1 right here, day 2, day 3 on the back, totally new, different workouts. The really cool thing about it is that week 1 and week 5, they start a new program, new sheet, and it's totally brand new. There's tons of coaching going on. And then, for example, on week 2 and 3, they're starting to get better, starting to make some gains. Week 4, they're really getting confident with the workout. And then week 5, we totally switch it up on them. And although sometimes there's a little frustration there because they're like, oh, we finally get it, we're getting good at it, it keeps their mind engaged. So I find that if we did 6 or 8 weeks straight, it would get a little bit stale. So the 4 weeks is really stimulating as well. So 2 to 3 days a week, 8 weeks, 4 weeks, 1 week of recovery. Cool thing is on week 7 and week 8, people are typically getting a little worn out, a little run down, and honestly, most of them aren't realizing it, that it's near the end of their training program and they've been grinding for 7 or 8 weeks and they're just getting a little more fatigued. So that week 9 recovery has been super helpful because that way they come back for the next program after a week and they're excited and ready and they're like, oh my gosh, I can't wait for the off week to be over. We encourage them just to get out and get active rest, whatever they like to do, whether they like to swim or walk or run or whatever they want. But so that's how that's been structured. Then our programming. So we always program the warm-ups. Day 1's different from day 2, different from day 3. We might do a ladder warm-up or a resisted band warm-up or a barbell warm-up or a dynamic body weight warm-up just to keep those fresh because no one wants to do the same warm-up over and over and over. And then the coordination exercise is where we start. So that could be a ladder exercise or a cone exercise or a different type of jump. It might be we do some 2-foot jumping, 1-foot landing, just something where they're working on coordination. And everyday adults, they love that. And that's something that a lot of the clients in the program have found to be one of their nice outcomes, is that they're just more coordinated, they're balanced in their everyday life, and they notice that. So it's also things that most people are pretty uncomfortable doing. So say we have a 50-year-old in the program that sometimes they say, I haven't jumped in 20 years. Not saying we're doing big old box jumps all the time, but just something with coordination. Then we go to our 2 primary exercises all the time. These always switch, but we start with an explosive exercise because we want them to be performing that really well. It's really technical. We want their power to be high. And then we go to a primary strength-based move. So that could be a deadlift or a squat or a bench press or a split squat, something like that. And that, again, will always switch every 4 weeks. 2 things we try to balance are hip-dominant moves and our knee-dominant moves. So say we have a hang snatch and a deadlift or something in a workout. Those are hip-dominant. We want to make sure we get some knee-dominant moves in any given day as well so that every day is balanced in a whole-body workout. We also balance pushes and pulls, of course, because if we have a couple pushes in there, we got to make sure we're doing something like a chin-up or some other pull exercise to make sure they're balanced. And then fill in the rest of the workout down below with the supporting exercises if the coaches notice some sort of weakness in folks or just something that we need to support our other primary lifts. We plug those in there. A really cool thing has been the challenge exercises at the end of the day. People like that. They like to complain about it, but I think there's a piece of them that likes it as well. It could be like battle ropes or plate pushes or like we do an active hang for time or a plate pinch. Just something really challenging that kind of brings the camaraderie together at the end of class. And then the last thing I wanted to mention was, Gray was with us when we initially started the program in 2016. He left last year in August. And then Kyler, we've been fortunate enough to join us, and he's a sound strength coach. And you just need someone to own the programming because it takes a lot of time and energy. But cool thing about this is that you're not having to do it for every single person. So we have about 70 people in the program, 50 in Barbell, 20 in Metcon. And we would have more, but we have some schedule limitations there. But anyways, you need a trainer to own it, and I'm really grateful that they've been able to do that for us. In our feedback surveys we send out at the end of every 8 or 16 weeks, one of the cool comments people give is they appreciate the thoughtfulness of the exercises. So they can tell that there's some planning going into it, a little different than just a traditional group exercise class. And even though they might not understand the aspects of programming like you guys do, they can tell. Even just an average adult can tell that there's a reason they're doing the things they're doing. Next up, some unique features we have in the program are our pound club and strength testing. So most everyday adults have not strength tested before. So that's been a fun one to kind of slowly break down the barriers with folks. But every 16 weeks, we'll 3 to 5 rep max test them during week 8 of their program. So it's not adding additional staff time. And we'll do the hang clean, deadlift, front squat. And then from that, we create our pound clubs, which most pound clubs have some kind of bench press in there, but we just have some equipment limitations. So I like that it's different, being those 3 lifts. And then we also test their max push-ups and max pull-ups. So definitely some resistance at the beginning, but once people do it, they're like, wow, they come to their group and they have a supportive group around them that's cheering them on when they're trying their max attempt. And that's something that just most adults don't get to feel, that camaraderie. It's been so cool to see. So then our goal wall. This used to be just a kind of sterile white wall, but we decided, the strength coaches just chalkboard painted it one day, threw everybody's name up on the wall. It added a nice piece of relatedness. There's not space to write out a whole SMART goal, but everybody uses it a little differently. Some people will put a little nutritional goal on there. Some will put behavioral goals or outcome goals around, like I want to get a 200-pound deadlift or something like that. And then one pretty common one is I'm gonna train 3 days a week, or I'm gonna get to class twice a week. So that's been very positive. We erase that goal wall every 2 programs, so every 16 weeks as well. Then our accountability board. This stemmed from us. We're doing some between our strength testing and our psychometric research on folks. We really needed to be able to keep attendance and to know how often people are there, because there's a big difference when I'm looking at 2 people's outcomes if they've been there 3 days a week or if they've been there like 1.5 times a week or just once a week. So we only use it in a positive way. We actually one of our strength coaches we've had, let me just say that we keep it positive. So it's not something that I'm going to say, hey, Vanessa, where have you been? You haven't been here. You've only been here once a week for the last 8 weeks. It's just some people choose to use it, some don't, but the coaches check it off and keep people accountable in that way. Then our why. So this has been one of the coolest pieces, and I'm hoping that some of you guys will take this and run and launch a new type of program, new platform for your folks. But it's really allowed people to connect with their why. So I wanted to mention this to give you guys a little bit of a feel for the type of clients we work with. Amber here, total rock star, mother of 3, pharmacist. She comes to class. Her why is that she used, the quote was her daily dose of barbell medicine. So it helps keep her kind of sane and just on top of all the different busy things she has going on. Then we have Rick here. He's a highway patrol officer. He is an interesting one because he's always been pretty strong, but what Barbell and Competitive Edge have done for him is taken it to the next level, because instead of just coming into the gym to do his leg day or to bench or to just kind of randomly go through a program, he's on a specific program, and now he's reaching new gains that he's never seen before. Both him and Amber, new plateau, new achievements, I guess, compared to what they've been used to. Leanne here, nurse at the hospital, total rock star as well. She's a cancer survivor. Her why, or what we do with that platform, is that she's just, since remission, just taking control of every aspect of her health. And now Barbell is just one of those components. She just sees it as part of her life. She says she's going to keep doing it for the foreseeable future. And so it's provided her that opportunity that typically in the past that training wouldn't have been available, or she would have had to pay for personal training. Then Tim. He's a cool story because he's been doing group exercise at our facility a long time, but now that we got him on a specific strength training program, he is totally blown up with his strength gains, and he just stumbled upon a Highland Games, if you guys are familiar with that, a Scottish competition, lots of heavy lifting and throwing, and stumbled upon it with his daughters, and he tried it, he was good at it, and now he's going to nationals, because he came from nowhere. But if he wasn't training in that specific program compared to just group exercise or just on his own, he probably wouldn't be reaching quite the same level. And then Mary, wanted to highlight her because her balance, coordination, and stability are her biggest thing she's happy about. Her why is that it impacts her life outside of the gym. She loves to ride horses. She says it gives her better stability on the horse, her posture. She just feels in control of the horse. So lots of different whys, but we're just providing that platform for people. And then what I wanted to highlight here is that it's just a little bit different. These folks, compared to what you see here, as far as doing something intentional and specific and being connected. Then some last points of emphasis with folks. We sat down about 1.5 years ago to talk about what some of the most important things to measure in our program would be, a couple of goals to strive for, and we came up with retention percentage and new client numbers. So with our retention percentage, we every 8 weeks shoot for at least 75% or more, which blew my mind. When we started this, I had no idea that people would continue as long as they have. I thought they'd come, learn some skills for 8 weeks, and then go do it on their own. But people are sticking around. We have people that have stayed for 2 years, a lot of people that have stayed over 1 year, and I think and I'll tell you in a couple minutes why I think it is, but just totally surprising and such a great thing. So if we're not hitting that number, we need to look at our coaching, see what we're doing wrong, see if we're not connecting with folks, reach out to those individuals, and then new client numbers. We're looking for about 10 every time, roughly, give or take. Referral program, if you guys do start some kind of new program, need to create something to encourage word-of-mouth marketing. And what we've done is just for every friend or every person a client refers, they get $25 off their next program. If they do 2, they get $50 off. And if they refer 3 over any given time frame, it could be over a year, they get their whole program for free, which is worth $258. So it's a nice incentive, as well as people just like to tell their friends. But you're just encouraging that a little bit more. The social media piece, I would just make sure you guys encourage your teams to share the responsibility. Some of you probably operate your own business or run your social media platform all on your own, and it can be quite the challenge, especially if you're trying to create new content and aren't just looking to just share like links or things like that. Make sure it's a shared effort. Community building is something we're always talking about in our meetings. How can we help people feel more of a team atmosphere? We do a couple events every year, just potlucks at some of our clients' places, T-shirts, and then things down in the facility like the goal wall and accountability board and stuff help people feel like they're part of a team, not just an individual showing up for a workout. SDT emphasis. So how many of you are familiar with self-determination theory? Nice, good. So 3 of the main components are autonomy, competence, and relatedness. We have a psychometric expert who's actually my wife that brought this. She believes strongly in SDT and its importance with sustainable behavior change. So when we talk about things, whether like operational decisions, should we do this, should we not do that, is that a good idea, is that a bad idea? Often if you relate it back to these 3 components, you'll be able to figure it out. So with autonomy, we do a couple things. With our weight selection, we never force someone to do a certain weight. I don't say, hey, Pete, you need to deadlift 250 pounds today. They have that autonomy to choose. Of course, we do a little bit of challenging them, and you get to know your clients who you can challenge more than others. Okay. And then autonomy also on Fridays and Saturdays for open gym, we have what we call a choice lift. So for their primary strength or primary explosive move of the day, it just says Olympic choice, and they get to choose. So if you want to work on deadlift, do that. If you want to work on your hang snatch, do that. Competence, obviously barbell training totally relates to competence and the mastery involved with that. So that's been totally different in our facility again compared to some other group exercise and things like that. They master something. People had no idea they could ever do a hang clean, and here they are doing 100 pounds. Relatedness, a little bit same tied in with the community piece of just relating to others, making sure that piece is there as well. We never want someone to come to one of our groups. And it can be tough because some of the folks have been training together for a year and then a new person shows up. We got to do everything we can to help them feel related. So I'll encourage our older clients to go connect with that person, like say, hey, Jackie's new. Can you go mention something to her about where you started and how you were brand new and nervous and scared and all that kind of thing? And then the last piece before we go to proficiency is relationships. So the whole success of the program depends on the coaches connecting with the individuals. The reason Dana has a gold star there is she was a personal trainer at the summit, not involved in competitive edge in the first year, 8 months or so, but she had a lot of small group training and a lot of personal training clients, and she would just keep those clients forever. So didn't do any barbell training. She wasn't someone you would expect to be the person you want to recruit maybe into your program. Might not be a big, strong guy, might not have been barbell training forever, but her relationships are just incredible. And she is, anytime I have a new client, I'll send them to her for orientation. So she's joined us and now just bringing tons of people. Very important that you guys have coaches that are going to build those relationships. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Pete for our proficiency.
Thanks, Kyle. Good morning. How are you? Good. Welcome to the summit. Hope that it started off well for all of you. You're enjoying it. What I'm going to do right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to give you 7 things that you can look at when you're thinking about starting someone in a strength training program. We call these movement competencies or proficient movements or proficiency movements. And so all the things that you can teach people to do in a weight room or in a strength training facility, when you bring them all together, they have a few things in common. And these are sort of 7 things that you look for, or you might want to look for when you're thinking about teaching, training, or advancing a program. And so one is the ability to hinge at the hip. The other is to have a good foundational squat. The other is to be able to extend your thoracic spine and your scapula, to tilt it posteriorly so your arm can move unimpededly over your head without an impingement or any other problem. Likewise, the other is to be able to move your tibia forward when your foot is fully weight-bearing. Okay, so for your knee and your tibia to go forward while you're in a weighted lunge or a squatting position. And the other is to actively be able to get as close to full external rotation at the shoulder and internal rotation at the shoulder. And the other is something called a squat and bend assessment, which we're going to do. And these are basically, if you look across the board, these are things that we all do when we perform any of these other exercises. But if you walk around weight rooms and training facilities and you see people moving awkwardly with some of the lifts they're doing, and you really take a critical look, you might find that if you brought them back and asked them to do these, they would have some difficulty with these. And so my premise for us doing this morning is we're going to get up and do some of these things, is you might want to look at some of these things before you decide to move somebody on with some of the lifts that are really exciting to do. And there's some things that if they have a little bit of trouble with this, that you can do ahead of time to get them ready to go to where they really want to be, where you want to take them. So would you like to do that? Okay, so I'm going to give this to, I'm not sure if red button, move it forward or no?
Yeah, to the right
Right
button on the right.
Okay. So as we do this, as we get up, here are a couple things I want you to keep in mind. So show them what you want them to do. Do it briefly. Don't give the client more information than is needed. And here's why. Don't tell them too much. Don't tell them what you're looking for, because inadvertently, someone will try to hide what they think is bad. So don't give too much information. Show them something, use as few words as possible, be direct, and then watch. Okay? And that's what we're going to do next. So what we're going to be looking at are, okay. So one by one, we're going to look at some hip hinging. And these are the questions when someone is doing this. You want to ask these questions to yourself when you're watching them. Okay? And what I've done here for you is just giving you some different examples of some of these fundamental movements at different levels. So the hip hinge. So when you watch somebody do that, you want to ask these questions. Can they keep their feet level? Can they get their hips back? Can they lock their spine? Can they make a shelf with their chest, keep their maneuvering up, keep their scapula down in retraction, posterior tilt, and depression? Can they keep their chin tucked, their ears over their shoulders? With some bend in the knees, are they moving as a full unit? Are the knees caving around? So you want to look for those things, but you don't tell them too much of that. They don't need to know that. Just show them what you want. And then with the squat, the same thing. Are they able to keep a long spine? Are they keeping the chest up, the ears over the shoulders? Are they moving posteriorly from the hip first? Are they allowing the tibia to move forward, translate forward? Okay? Are they letting it go as far forward as they can? We'll discuss when we do the squats whether the knees should come forward or not. How are they when they have their arms out in front of them? How are they when they have their arms this way? So we want to look at that. We'll go to the next one. Thanks. Okay, your ability to extend your thoracic spine and subsequently to tilt your scapula posteriorly. Can you do those things? So that's the scapula tilting backwards there. So if you can't tilt back, the top is green, you're going to have trouble getting your arm over your head and it's going to get caught when you do things like a snatch or a barbell press or a push press or a pull-up or anything else. So the ability to do that requires muscle activations. And so there's a nice test if you can do that. I'm here to test the length of the lat pectoralis. And this is one of a series of scapulo-thoracic conditioning exercises, rear posterior chain activators called the Prone Y. So it's part of the TYIW series of exercises. The beauty of these is that you can do them on the floor or on a plinth, a treatment table, or over stability board. Your progressions are such that as you get further off the ground, your moment arm, your lever arm gets larger and it gets longer, so you're lifting a longer segment. But you can just do it from off the floor. You're just basically contracting, just moving the limbs a little bit. So at a very initial level, this can be a great activator or a warm-up activity. But if someone's having trouble performing and getting their arms over their head such without cheating, that's one activity that you can give them to improve that. But you're basically looking, can the person keep their shoulder girdle against a wall or lying on the floor? Can they keep their low back flat and not arch their back to move their arms into that position? And can they, in this case, maintain contact with the wall with their buttock and their arms with their heels a little bit further away? Or in this case, can they poke the wall? And I'm going to ask some of you if you can find a wall in a minute to do that. To poke, to punch, and then to flatten the back of your hands against the wall. So that would be really an important thing. We're going to go to the next slide real quick. Your ability, either in a standing position with your foot straight ahead on the line and your back leg behind you, to bring your kneecap against the wall without that heel coming off the ground, and how far you're able to do that will kind of let you know whether someone's going to have trouble getting down into a squat, or catching a bar in this position, doing something like that. If they can't move without flipping their feet out or falling over onto their toes, then maybe some training, some mobility training, some other things would be better before you start full-blown loaded bar lifting. This is just a quick assessment to see if you have full external rotation. One thing to note in that internal rotation is that it's easy to cheat these tests if you let the person arch their back. So if you're going to do this, you want to make sure that their pelvis tilts back a little bit so that the lat now has to, so if their lat is tight, it's going to show up and their arm is going to come up off the ground and stuff. So that's important. And this is that squat and bend assessment. So essentially, these lines are just their invisible lines. And what you're asking them to do is take two dowels and just hold them parallel to the floor in a position and watch how they pick it up. And so what you're looking for, similar to the overhead squat assessment, is, is there a parallel relationship between the trunk when it's held properly and the tibia? That's really what you're looking for. And can they move first from their hips? And is the tibia allowed to move this way, to move anteriorly? And then I just threw in an example of what Kyle's going to show you in a little while. We're going to practice on his end of stuff, which is a suitcase squat with dumbbells. So if someone's not kind of getting it there, it might be premature to start, doing some other things like that. Okay, we'll maybe go to the next one. I think there's. Okay, so at that, I'd like to get all of you up. Those of you that would like to. It might be easier to do every other row, and then we could switch because there's just so many people. And then most of you will probably be okay. It's there. There are some dowels. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to go right back to the first proficiency slide. We're going to have you do that, and then these are going to segue us in. Right after that, we're going to do some actual squatting and deadlifting things here. Okay. So the first thing we do is take an invisible bar, unless you have a bar, and let's get 3 points of contact: back of your head, between your scapula, and over your sacrum. So the bar has to stay in that position. Okay. And what's going to happen from there is we're going to start with just a very shoulder width stance. Chin is tucked, chest is up, and just push your hips back as far as you can without that stick popping off of any of those places. So without it popping off any of those places, we've got plenty of sticks if you'd like to use them as well. Okay, so that's movement number one. How far can you push your buttocks back without feeling like the stick is going to come off of all of those? Okay? So let's see if we can do that. We'll do that real quickly. Okay, we'll do that just really quickly. So we're going to push the hips back. And then come on back. So you're just hinging from the hip. Okay? How many of you are able to do that? Or how many of you feel like the stick is coming away in one place? If you do, shorten your range of movement a little bit. Just shorten it. Just do a little bit. Mini movement. Okay? Start with simple and then become more complex with your progression on that. All right? So now, a basic squat. That's a safety squat. So what we have here is just using tubing. You could use a TRX. So what you can do is grab a partner really quickly, and one of you is the spotter, the other one is just going to be the clinician or practitioner, and just sit back, keeping your chest up. Push your hips back, reach forward, and just open your legs up a little bit. So externally rotate your hips a little, turn your feet out, and just come backwards. Look straight ahead. So your partner can hold your hands if you want to. So if you're checking this out with someone, you have to hold on and just do that. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead and then switch. Okay, then we'll switch to the next one. So, soft knees, buttocks against the wall, low back against the wall, scapula against the wall, back of your head, chin tucked, arms against the wall, 90-90, like someone's holding you up, boom. Okay, so your hands are here like this, okay? And then how far can you slide, like trying to lightly take the paint off the wall? Okay, so can you do that without arching your back, without your shoulders coming away, without your hip coming forward, okay? So that's a really important one, a wall wash or a wall angel. You can feel your mid and lower trapezius muscles and the other posterior chain muscles firing when you do this properly. So you're here, and you're back here. You can be like back here and pushing. Okay, when you do that. Okay, so then there's the wall poke. And you stay in that position with your arms straight without bending and poke the wall with your thumbs. If you're doing it right, your head's not going forward and nothing's coming away from the wall, you'll feel again. You can feel, how many of you can feel that firing between your scapula? Or feeling your chest stretching? Or feel your neck extension stretching? So that's an important one. Now, if we can do it, let's get, if some of you can, and you want to lie on the ground with your knees bent, see if you can poke the floor, and then from there, I'll transition you into the external rotation and internal rotation assessment. So without arching your back, can you poke the floor with your thumbs, and can you keep your elbows straight when you're doing that? Okay? So from there, let's go into an angel. Let's go into an angel. So the angel is in this position, so you're going to rub the floor with the back of your arms and the back of your hands. Keeping your chin tucked, keeping your knees bent, and not arching your back. Okay? Then the next one from there is you're at the 90-degree position, keeping your chin tucked, staying flat on the floor. Can you touch the floor with the back of your hands on the back of your forearms like this, like a robot? Can you do that without your shoulder blade coming away from the floor, without your chin coming off, coming forward, and without your low back arching? Okay. Then once you've done that, you're in this position. Can you come up to parallel or perpendicular to the ceiling, and can you come forward without your shoulder coming off the ground? How far can you go without your arm coming off the ground and without your shoulder rising? So just pure movement. So we could probably go to the next slide for that one. Ooh, yeah, that's it right there. So just like that, okay? So you want about 90 degrees. Going backwards and about 70 coming forward. Okay. Now, let us do the. Now that we're done on the ground, let me get you up, and we'll do this one, which is a weight-bearing lunge test or loaded lunge for dorsiflexion. So if you have a wall, that's great. If you don't, get a partner to put their hands up for you so you don't slip and you don't fall forward. And what you're going to do is put one leg on a line like you're on the carpet or facing the wall. The back leg, it doesn't really matter what it's going to do. Big toes pointing straight ahead. You're holding the wall, and it's how can you touch the wall with your kneecap but keep your heel down on the ground without turning your foot inward or outward. So that's the first step. How many of you can do that? How many of you can find a place where you can touch the wall with your knee but keep your heels down and not turn your feet out? Okay? Now, if you can do that successfully, what you would typically do, there are too many people that do this right now, is you'd measure that distance from the wall to your big toe. Okay? If you can do that, then the next challenge is can you go a little further back and still touch the wall with your knee without your heel coming up and without turning your feet. You stop the test. We're going to stop the test when two things. When the heel starts to come off the ground or the foot starts to move sideways or the knee can't reach the wall. So it's the greatest distance where you're still touching the wall with your knee, your heel stays down, and your feet are pointing straight ahead. And so your hands will be on the wall. Now this can be done in a down position as well. So let's do that really quickly as well. You can also do it in the low, and the benefit of that is for someone that has less balance, is less stable, or someone who has difficulty in the lower part of the squat, when their body weight is down lower. So what you're looking for is can the person get at least 5 inches away or 12.5 centimeters away. So it's typically thought that if you can't do at least 5 inches, that's a restriction. That's going to be someone that's going to have difficulty squatting and lunging and doing such. Okay?
And then lastly, let's just really quickly do the squat and bend assessment together. So if you have 2 of these, that's great. If you don't, pretend that you do. And just do a nice hip hinge. Keep your chest up. Move back from the heels. Have a partner look at you and see if your upper body and your shins are parallel to one another. Okay? So just with your arms down to your sides, look straight ahead, push your hips back, keep your trunk tall, and let's see how that looks. I think that's it. That's it.
All right, everybody. So you can stay up, but if any of you want to grab a bar, go ahead and switch a little bit, just so we get a little bit of different folks getting the smart sticks. Now we're going to go through the squats and the deadlift. I'm going to start with the deadlift that way with you guys. We're going to break it down for about 15 minutes, keeping that. And yeah, so deadlift. So if you guys grab a smart stick, and if you have one, I want you to grab a partner as well that does not have one. So find a partner. If you have a smart stick, find a partner that does not have one. So, just because it is probably the most important thing for our deadlift for us to work on. Listen up, listen up. We're going to do that hip hinge one more time. If you guys have not done it, make sure you grab a stick so you can. We're trying to keep the 3 points of contact, the back of our head, our upper back, and our hips. Go ahead and give it 10 reps. Take your time. We want to unlock the knees. Good teaching point, because you'll have a lot of people that have their legs locked and they're trying to do this. Unlock the knees. Go ahead and try 10 reps. We're trying to get your hips going back. Should be able to wiggle your toes anytime. There's a lot of different progressions with all the lifts we're going to work on today, but we're just giving you one that we found works well for us. Once you guys are done with 10 reps, we're going to go on to a second progression exercise. Good. Second partner, go ahead and try 10 reps of that hip hinge. Second partner, 10 reps of the hip hinge. You guys can visualize any of this stuff too if you don't have a bar. Oftentimes the hardest thing is for people to maintain that tailbone contact. Good. Second partner, once you're done with 10, we'll go on to our second progression exercise. Looks good. Keeping all 3 points in contact. If people can hip hinge proficiently, they're going to be good at a lot of different lifts. So now we're going to go very simple one. I want first partner just to go for 5 reps. We call this a thigh Dallas slide. It's just the first part of your deadlift. We want our hips going back first. All we're going to do is slide the bar down. Your thighs to just above the kneecap. Very, very simple. Just 5 reps. Once you're done with 5, pass it off to your partner. Keep a neutral neck. Oftentimes we find people that are trying to always either look to the ceiling or look way up. What we teach is just a neutral spine. So as your torso tips down, your vision's going to go with you. Yeah, yeah. Just 5 reps, then pass it to your second partner. Good, keeping that neutral neck, neutral spine, hips going back. All right, then our third progression exercise. One of my favorites that was new from our other coach, Ray, is a 1-inch contraction lift. So you're going to get in the bottom position of the deadlift. Our shins are pretty straight up and down. Make sure your hips are higher than a squat. Neck is neutral. And the coaching point with this is break the bar. So we want to think, we're trying to contract our lats, because even though a lot of people think of deadlift just as a lower body exercise, we want to make sure our upper body is engaged too. So when you have a 35, 45 pound bar, it's actually quite challenging. All you would do is contract the lats to lift the bar 1 inch, maintaining your bottom position. And it's a great way to teach them that we have to be contracted all the way. Because if you don't teach that part at the bottom, oftentimes you're going to have people that are limp here and just go into the deadlift right away. So 1-inch contraction lift, everyone try about 5 of those. Just contract the lats, and if we had plates on the bar, we would lift off the ground 1 inch, relax. Contract, relax. It's really nice if people have a tight shirt on or a tank top, because you can literally see their lats contract.
If you press your chest outward, it makes activating that area easier. So chest
So
out.
try 5 of those, then pass it off to your partner for 5.
Think about bending the bar. Stick your chest out to your bar.
Looking for our shin angle to be fairly straight up and down, hips higher than a squat, same neutral spine. If you were with the client right now, you can check their spine alignment with your dowel at the same time. And then we're back to the first partner. First partner, we're going through the whole resident. So this is a bottom up exercise, so that's where we're going to start. Is down here. And I just want you guys to try 10 reps, nice and slow, under control. Partner, you're going to watch them. If you have any coaching points for them, let them know. And we're just going through 10 reps under control of the deadlift. Hold that bottom position. A lot of common errors. People will bounce the bar off the ground. They might have a rounded spine. They might have their head up. They might have their knees forward, their butt down. Another thing to look for is the bar path. We want to make sure that path is a straight vertical line going down. Go ahead for 10 reps and pass it off to your partner. 10 reps and pass it off to your partner. So one more time, some of those coaching points. Break the bar, hips higher than a squat. We want the bar over our midfoot, not out over your toes. You'll find a lot of people starting there. We want a neutral spine, not chin way up in the air. Keeping that bar very close to you. Every little inch that bar comes away exposes your spine. So we want to make sure we keep it really close to us just for that mechanical leverage. So once the first partner is done, pass it off to the second partner for 10 reps. Then we have a little practical challenge for you. Good, keeping the bar close. If you think of it as that progression, we have the 5 L slide, then we're at the bottom. Make sure you track that 1-inch contraction lift. Alright, and now for a challenge. So it's going to be a little bit loud in here for 3 or 4 minutes. But I want you, and I'm sorry for some of you in the back that you don't have a partner, but every single person out here with a partner and bar, I want you to teach your partner the deadlift. But the person that is being the demo client, I want you to act like you have no idea what you're doing. Don't just get into perfect form and do a perfect deadlift. It's kind of fun to just kind of have whatever. Change your posture, do things a couple differently, but I want you guys to practically teach it. 'Cause it's one thing to textbook learn something, totally different to be able to reiterate that to a client. So 10 reps, each partner, completely teach your partner. As a brand new beginner, they don't know, give them some bad posture, and then in 3 or 4 minutes, we'll move on. loosen up. Check, check, check. We're going to move on to the RDL and a couple prehab exercises. We're going to be on the deadlift for just about 3 more minutes, and then we're going to jump to the front squat and back squat with Pete. But with the RDL, great variation of the deadlift. We're just going to be, the change is now, it's no longer a bottom-up exercise. We're going to go top-down, really focusing on the glutes, hamstring, and back. We want our hips going back right away. Again, coaching point with the knees is to unlock the knees. Typically, most people that'll make sense to. We're going to go down to where they're comfortable. If you guys watch from the side, making sure their first movement is their hips going back. Again, we have a neutral spine. Knees are unlocked, going down to where their hamstring flexibility will allow them. If you guys have a bar, go ahead and try that for 5 reps, and then pass it off to your partner. Everyone's range of motion with this will be a little different. Make sure they keep the bar very, very close to their thighs. We do not want that bar slipping away from the body at all, because then you're extending the spine and putting your back and back. Another minute or 2. 4. Okay.
I do that. So what I would tell folks is we want to stay
So a couple questions came up. One of them was make sure you got with the shoulder or the lat coaching point, break the bar, and when you're thinking about breaking the bar over the shin.
Right.
And then also, with this one, watching just a couple people, make sure you don't bend the knees too much, just like the deadlift, because we want to make sure this lift is different than the deadlift, and the thing that's going to change that is the knee angle. So sometimes in our program, when we have people go to the RDL, they want to lift it heavier and heavier and heavier, and how they do that is they just make it look more and more like a deadlift. But we want to make sure it's different, encourage them to go lighter, it's not going to be as heavy of a lift. And then probably the last thing, maybe second last thing to cover today is if you guys are looking for something to really practice hip hinging, one of my favorite things to get better at the deadlift is the kettlebell swing. It can be used for a variety of different things. You can turn it into a pretty good endurance workout as well if you want to bump up the intensity level of any given strength lift. And with the kettlebell swing, so if you watch a lot of people in the gym, they'll do it more like a squat. They might throw it up here, they might arch their back, but we want to keep it to totally be a hip hinge. We're going to have the kettlebell tucked up nice and high near your groin with a powerful pop on top of the glutes. Make sure you don't overextend so you're not arched. For weight, we're looking to get it up to chin level. If you're popping the bar or the kettlebell way up here, that's a good gauge to have them go up in weight. And if they can only get it up to here, let's go down in weight. So we can pop it up to here. Every one, powerful hip hinge contraction, great lift to work on for your deadlift and stuff. So what we're gonna do, let's go. Last thing is I just want you guys to visualize that. We could grab a dumbbell, but let's go with 10 reps for everybody. Pete and I are gonna walk around, try to make sure everyone's popping their hip. A great way to tell if you're working the right area is every single time you should have a hard glute. You should have a powerful glute contraction on that. Arms are just letting it pop right back down. Make sure it's a glute exercise. And remember, just coming up to chin level, just coming up to chin level. Don't arch your back.
However, I just Alright, Pete has a other variation for that kettlebell swing to work on.
resistance bend, and then we're going to jump to the front and back squat. So, same thing, just with a little resistance. We pull a little tighter. And again, we want to keep our good posture. We don't want to be rounding here. And pop. Funny butt. Great idea. We want to add a little bit of resistance to work on that hinge. So with that, we're going to go to the front and back squats. Pete's going to lead.
Okay, so if you grab a partner for this, we're going to start off right away with a partner. You could use a stick. These are also very helpful to use as well. So we've got plenty of these on the table on the back. So just really quickly get one of these. We'll actually put you in groups of 3. Okay, this will work really well this way. All right. So the first thing you're going to do is with your partner, either with a stick or with the band, the person who's going to do the squat first will either hold on to the pole or hold on to the handles with the band. The other person will just hold the band or hold the pole. What we're going to do is a safety squat. So with your safety squat, just position your feet at a comfortable width. Just, can you guys put them that shoulder width or a little wider? Can you turn your feet out just a little for me? Okay? Let's see how long we can make our torsos. Let's see how tall we can be. Let's get our ears over our shoulders and our chest up. And then open the knees and sit back. Arms out in front and sit back. Sit back, look straight ahead. Sit back. If you want to look up slightly, that's good too. You can look up slightly. You don't want to look too much up at the ceiling. You don't want to look down. Okay? You want to switch? After you've done 5, switch. Can everybody switch? Okay. So now, here's the next one. Here's the next progression for it. So now we're not going to use any assistive aid anymore because it does have a tendency to make you lean back a little bit. So now what it asks you to do is without holding on to anything, arms out, chest up tall, hips back, open your hips up. And just break the, if you can, try to get to where the top of your thigh, okay, the back of your leg and the top of your thigh are parallel or your knees are a little higher than your hips. So you can do that. Okay? Big chest. Big chest, backside back. Okay? Now, Simon says, let's do it with our arms crossed. Okay, like this. Okay, if you notice, how many of you, if you watch someone next to you, how many of them as they get down to parallel, it looks like their underside goes under and the low back face like a C this way. That's called a butt wing. Okay, and so if you see someone that has one of those, one thing that you might want to do with them is don't have them go down as low. Have them go to the point where they're not doing that butt winging. Because you always want to maintain a little curve in your low back. Okay, so just go to the point where you don't butt wing. Actually, put it on your shoulders and cross your hands like this, thumb to thumb, and rest it. Okay? Your challenge, ladies and gentlemen, your challenge is to not have that roll or tip to either side. So let's see who can do that. Let's see who can do that. Who can do the best squat with the tallest trunk and keep that bar level and right up against the top of your front deltoid. Okay? Who can keep a tall torso when they're doing that? Okay, so if you're with a partner and they're bending forward a little bit, see if you can kind of verbally, see if you can tell them to do something to stop that. So instead of saying don't do it, give them a cue to make them do that. Okay? Tell them something. and someone like they're kind of way up. Let's do this. I'm going to do this with Kyle. Okay, so what I'm going to do with Kyle is if someone will give Kyle a dowel, he's going to cross this. We're going to start with this one, and then we'll go to the next one, the armless squat. What I'm going to do is put this just above his knee joint, and I'm going to kneel here, and now I'm going to have him do his squat. So now as he goes back, he doesn't have to worry about falling backwards or moving his shins. So now he's got some feedback. Now if his knees have a tendency to knock inward, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to say, Kyle, I want this to get tight. Make this band tight for me. Make it tight. All right, so now he's automatically activating the gluteus medius and the external rotator muscles at the same time, and it cleans up. It gets cleaned up. So if I keep it there, it's cleaning it up right away. You can also use the monster bands for monster walk. You can put them there, and as such, you can do a couple of different things. But without me saying much and getting too long-winded with him, I just said, Kyle, do this, and or Kyle, don't let me pull you. Don't. Okay, so go ahead, sit down, Kyle. Okay, there you go. Look at me, Kyle. Okay, stick your chest out, Kyle. Boom. Come on up, Kyle. Boom. So there we go. So just get specific things to do, okay? So there we go. So go ahead. Try that out a little bit.
Is everybody doing okay? All right, so now we're going to progress to what's called the armless squat. So you're going to place the bar across your deltoids. All right, and the only rule here is you're going to do the same maneuver, but this time the bar must not roll forward. So let's see who can keep the bar across their deltoids and sit back with a nice squat. Yeah, without holding it with your chin. And if you need to clean it up, you can do the same thing with the tubing. You might find it easier to rotate your shoulders out a little, thumbs up.
That's it.
Okay, next progression. So now the bar is resting on your deltoids.
Just a little, but then
Your arms are a little bit wider than shoulder width and parallel to the floor. And you're just going to let your fingertips rest on the tops of your deltoids. Okay? If you lack some flexibility, go wider and just internally rotate your shoulders. But just try to keep your arms level with the floor. Air on the wider grip if you're having trouble, because there's not enough weight on the bar to push your wrist back. So go a little lighter, and then just turn your elbows in and pop them up. Try not to drop your elbows. Try to pop them upward. Keep them parallel. It's hard without weight. There, and then turn it over this way. Okay, not to rush anybody. We're going to go quick rear squat now. Okay, so I'm going to come up here. So put the bar on your high upper trapezius for me. And put your hands out just a little wider than shoulder width. Make a shelf with your chest.
If you have somebody that has shoulder impingement issues or instability issues, this is not a good position for them to go into the 90-90 or the high five. So that would be a benefit using the suitcase squat or the front squat. But anyhow, just put that up there. Keep your chest up. So you're going to look ahead. You can look slightly upward. You know, get a comfortable stance. Turn your feet out a little if you'd like to. Open your hips and just sit back and come back up. Okay, don't track. Okay, keep the heels and the balls of your feet down. So we'll use positive. So sit back on your heels, come up, push through your heel and the ball of your foot. Okay, keep the chest up. Keep the chest up as you come up. Exhale after you pass what would be your sticking point. Blow out on when you're about 2/3 of the way up. Blow out. Okay. Okay. When you're watching your partner, look to see if they're bending forward at the waist. Look to see if they're bending. Is anybody bending at the waist? Is anybody just pushing their knees forward this way and not moving from their hips? Are they knee dominant with their squat? So look for that. Are they knee dominant with their squat? Is their trunk getting parallel? Next question. Are their hips coming up faster than their shoulders, or are they rising in the same plane at the same time? So, are the hips and shoulders working together, or are the rear end and the hips coming up first? If you're having a little trouble with that, get near a wall and try to touch the wall with your buttocks. Just a little bit. Just come back a little till you feel it and come up. That's it. There you go. There you go. And you can always use your 2 feet of the band to wrap the knees too. Get near the wall and try to touch the wall lightly with your buttocks when you squat. That'll clean it up. So reach the wall with your hips. Look for your shin go forward at the same time. Solid to the ground so it can't go forward. All right? We'll demonstrate it once up here. So I'm going to bring you up. Okay? We're going to bring someone up in front. I'll be the spotter. And I need one person on each leg to not let the tibia move forward. Okay, so what I want you to do now is, your job is to not let their shin come forward at all. Your job is to do a nice squat.
Hold on tight.
Okay? Okay, squat. Come on now, squat. Oh, what's happening? What's happening? What's happening? Ooh, what's happening? What's that? You see that up there? Does it look like that? Yeah, okay, so now so let your shins go wherever you want them to, but just move your hips back a little first. Okay, yeah, here, like this, just, okay, so start again. Okay, so Simon says chest stays up, so make one little move this way, and then let these come forward as far as they want, but stay away when you're doing that. Look at the difference in the squat. Okay, so I want you to go back and do that now. So the moral of the story is, we don't worry about, oh, the knee should never go over this. That's not true. Your hips have to go backwards, hips have to externally rotate and open, and your tibia, that's the whole thing about the ankle mobility, your ankles have to move. If they don't go far enough forward, you're going to go over and you're going to always put excessive stress on the lumbar spine. So it's important that the tibia does move. It has to move. But it's not good if it's the only thing that moves and your hips don't come with it. So the hips move and the tibia go forward at the same time. And it ends up like a beautiful squat. It looks like you're still vertical. And you're pretty still close to it, but you're getting the movement you need. So I want you to go try this. Yeah, it does feel more fluid. Try that.
All right, everybody. We're going to head into our last couple supplementary lifts. We're going to go to the goblet squat, suitcase squat, and then Pete's going to lead some wall squatting and wall pressing. But for the goblet squat and suitcase squat, they are fairly similar. The biggest difference is where we're loading the squat. So these are a nice variation because in any program, we can't just be doing front squats and back squats all the time. So one, I really like to have the variation. With the goblet squat, every group, you guys are in groups of 3, right? Just send one person over to grab any dumbbell over there. I know they're very light, but just grab a dumbbell. Dumbbell or 2? 2 dumbbells, sorry, 2 dumbbells. So you guys will see how these go. So on every person to try at least 10 reps with it, with the goblet squat. We want to make sure our upper arms are parallel to the ground, just like when we're catching a clean. So we're holding on to one there. And then with the suitcase squat, another variation is just we're going to make sure our arms are outside of our legs. With that,
goblet squat first. Arms out. Here, keeping it tall. Ryan, just like he said, keeping our feet flat on the ground, making sure you're not bending into waist. We're going to try to stay upright on this. And just like our other squat, we've got to make sure our hip gains happen and take our butt backwards.
So you guys will find with a lot of your clients, whether it's a front squat or back squat, that this is going to be a great thing, a great supplementary lift to help them out. Working on another knee dominant move. And again, big takeaway from our squat section today is what Pete mentioned about your tibias. It's okay for them to slide forward, but we got to make sure we hip hinge and get our butt going back right away. As you guys do those two moves, hips hinging right away, hips going back right away.
So if I stay here and put my hand here so I can't cheat, and I press down and push in, and then I have to kind of push down a little bit, I'm firing away on this muscle. I'm just pounding it out, okay? So I want you to do that. But that's for somebody who's like this, or you're doing a pistol squat, and they have what we call valgus, corkscrewing, or where they're catching a bar or squatting, and they have a tendency either on one leg or both legs to do this. So you saw some things in action you can do with the band. This is another nice isolation, as are the clamshells. So why don't you try that one out?
That's good because I was going to follow this game. I always try to anywhere between
You guys will see that video in the top right, the wall squat with the ball. That's a great exercise for helping people keep their spine tall. You don't need to put a lot of pressure onto the ball, but that's a great way to work on the spine alignment.
required, I mean,
All right, everybody, if you could return to your seats real quick, that'd be great, and we'll close it up. It's all right if you want to sit on the floor, too. If you don't want to get into the chairs, you guys can just take a seat wherever you can find some space. So to wrap up today, 5 takeaway points for us. First one, and very, very applicable to your personal training clients or any program you create. And honestly, if you guys, I don't know how many of you are working with athletes, whether it's college athletes or anything else, but so important that people check their ego at the door with strength and conditioning. It's been really interesting with our Competitive Edge program to see the type of people it's attracted and kept. And certainly, number one, if they have an ego and we aren't able to break it down or get them to be coachable and growth-minded, they're going to have a really hard time sticking with the program. It's not like they come in and we harp on them every day or anything like that, but they just need to be open to new ideas, open to following a coach, following a plan, being coachable. So that's a really nice place to start, whether you have a new client or a new team or new anything, is just totally checking that ego, being humble. It's okay if you make a mistake. It's okay if you fall down doing a hang clean. It's okay. And then we found those really supportive groups to be helpful with that. Number 2 is improving the competencies that Pete mentioned prior to loading things. So it's much easier from a coaching perspective to just have people, we'll just use a back squat for example, to load the bar up and just start practicing it. It's a lot harder, it takes a lot more effort to break it down, and really a lot of people don't like to go lighter. I don't know if I want to say especially guys or not, but in our barbell program, yeah, I guess I can say that. So yeah, make sure you improve the movement before loading it, and challenge yourself as a coach. We have a young strength and conditioning coach that sometimes asks for our how to deal with certain client situations, and one of the challenging ones is someone that doesn't want to go lighter. How do you deal with that? But ultimately, their safety is on your back. It's your responsibility, and it's a great challenge to our coaching to really try to challenge someone to go lighter, to back up, to do it right, especially when they've got some really challenging movement habits developed already, to try to break those down. So that's a good challenge there. Number 3, regress and progress everything. So hopefully you guys saw today, whether it's the deadlift or the front squat deadlift or back squat, you can break everything down. Deadlift certainly with hip hinging and thigh dowel sliding, and although it may seem pretty easy, a thigh dowel slide, it's important that people know how to do that. So on day 1 or week 1 or whatever, make sure you touch that, and you can always come back to it in later programs if you're finding that people are having a certain difficulty with any of your complex moves. Break it down again. You could superset it with breaking it down. We could do a squat with hip hinging in between of a dowel. So get creative that way. Number 4, movement quality always precedes quantity. So just a nice, simple statement. I'm a big fan, like I said at the beginning, of practical things to take away from here. And that's a really simple one with your teams, is to focus on that quality over quantity. And then lastly, number 5 is where we started. I think there's tons of opportunity for everyday adults to be getting into this kind of strength and conditioning. If you find a way to create a creative new program that isn't just a $50 an hour personal training, there's going to be some really happy people. You're going to be able to connect them to their why, like we mentioned with those 5 clients we showed. And then lastly, right before Q&A, tomorrow we have day 2. We'll be covering upper body and power. We'd love to see you guys back here. We might rearrange some things a little bit for space. And with that said, I'll open it up to any questions you guys may have.
What would you do for a client
Did you all hear that question? What would you do with someone, a client that you're teaching the front squat, they're experiencing some low back pain, but they don't get it when they do the rear bar? So I would regress it. I would, first of all, check with the physician first, but if they clearly aren't having a problem doing anything else like that, I would look at their technique quickly, or I would suggest that you do that, and then I would break down the range of motion and how far you're having to go down. Because once you get about 2/3 of the way down, that's when that problem starts to happen, and they're probably doing what we call a buck wing. So they're probably going into this position when they're doing it, and that's what causes that. And so the correction for that, the video that we just showed where we had someone on the wall using the basketball and have them just go to the wall like that. So they're not relying on the wall, but they have to keep the wall from coming off the wall, and they've got to move with them. It forces them to put their thoracic spine into that extension that we talked about, and it forces them to lengthen, and it forces them to maintain the normal amount of lordosis in the low back, and it forces them to move simultaneously from here to, so it cleans it up. So I would maybe do that, and then maybe do the armless, get them back, have them do their rear squatting with weight, and then have them practice again, armless squat, then put a 45-pound bar on their deltoids with their arms out. So I would maybe regress it and start a little bit more gradually. So I would use that as a drill, and I would use the wall. And then as that gets better and it cleans up, then you can have them go back and then maybe put a little bit of weight on there. And in the meantime, you can emphasize the posterior chain with the regular squat and the RDL, the rear squat in other words, but kind of build that back up because it's a whole different, kind of a different skill, even though it feels similar.
That drill that was in the video, the basketball, is that specifically like a front squat drill, or can you do that without any weights?
Anything. You can use it for everything, but it will clean up the front squat. Okay. But yes, definitely. But it does help with that. Helps keep your thoracic spine up, helps you to correct that, get you to be more controlled, to develop more control and stability. Yeah.
What would be the best version of a squat for somebody with balance issues?
So her question was, what would be the best version of a squat for people with balance issues? And we have a lot of people that come into the program with balance challenges, and honestly I find that making sure they're doing barbell exercises is one of the best things they can do, because every move they do has to work on their balance. So I don't personally find that there's one specific move that's going to be best for their balance, but making sure you have some parallel feet exercises where you're working your squats, and also challenging them initially with some body weight unilateral moves, whether it's a split squat or some things like that, or lunges. Honestly, the biggest thing is that they're consistently working on some of that and doing some free weight type exercises, in my opinion.
I would add, that's great. I would add just one thing is that it's important to just regress what they're having trouble with and find the lowest common denominator. And so as an example, a bridge, a simple glute bridge is nothing more than a regress squat down to the low level. So bridging start with bridging and then banded bridging and single leg bridging, followed by getting off of a high seat or a high table, so that they have mechanical advantage in the power position from there. So start on what they can do, and then have them come down lower, lower, lower. Use the wall if you need to. Use that wall, and then progress. Or the safety squat that you saw using a band or even a TRX. So do those things, work around it, and then maybe bring them into the Smith for a short amount of time, or even a goblet or a double dumbbell on their shoulders. Let the dumbbell hang behind them. And that makes it easier to stay upright too. Or you can train them by using the band to put the tube a little higher on them and have them lean back a little bit. After you've done this one, they can then go from here and have them sit back while you're in front of them pulling. And just keep them sort of in front of the wall so that if they do have a little whoops, they're there. But that's another way of kind of progressing very gradually. You're making the movement pattern a little bit more complex, a little bit more difficult, a little bit more challenging, and ultimately the stuff that you did with Kyle today. There. So it's just starting with something easy and making it more difficult.
Right.
How do you do your program? Do you do it like RPE or percentage basis? How do you do it?
So interesting about RPE, we started actually a study right now where we're having people record their RPE throughout. But to answer your question specifically, we do not give them a specific weight percentage to be working.
Oftentimes with our primary lifts, we'll do something where we go either, lately we've been add weight each set, if it's a 4 or 5 rep set thing, or either like a light, medium, heavy. So we leave that, and that's a little bit about the autonomy we spoke to with actually Coach Football, and we've been trying to figure that out there, is how to suggest to each individual a specific weight to be lifting. And I find it really challenging to get folks to be checking percentage tables and to be picking the exact right weight. So with our adult program, it's fairly broad. We don't give them a specific weight to lift.
Okay, we have time for one more question, and then I know that both Pete and Kyle will stick around if you have more, and some of you probably want to go get lunch and other things, so let's go right here.
For people with poor dorsiflexion, what do you say the best 1 or 2 exercises would be to help improve that and to get low back pain and then really deep squat weighted?
So the first one I mentioned to you, but I wanted to mention to everybody else, is we'll superset with some of our exercises a weighted ankle mobility exercise where they are in that deep squat holding something like a 25-pound plate and just putting gentle pressure on that ankle joint so they're in this kind of position with the plate, and we'll have them just kind of shift to one side to work around there and then shift to the other side. But I know you're looking for something without deep squat mobility,
So that test that you did with the wall, so you can start that in an upright position, so it would be the sort of weight-bearing lunge, standing, progress down into, so then it would be progress down into the kneeling weight-bearing lunge. Keep in mind that you can increase the stretch a little bit in that position by just taking something very small and putting it under the balls of your feet. Okay, so if you're not comfortable putting it on your thigh, and what Kyle said is excellent. You can do that as well. But anytime you elevate the front and keep the heel down, you're sort of intensifying the stretch, and you can do that. And just remember that if it's muscular in nature, you need to do your stretches with your knees straight and with it dead, because you have 2 muscles that are going to contribute to difficulty bending dorsiflexion. And if it's more than that, you kind of have to be careful and stay within the scope of practice. You may want to have a good PT or a good orthopod that you work closely with, or an ATC, an athletic trainer, where they can look at if it's more like the talocrural joint, if it's more within the ankle joint itself, the subtalar joint. There's special molds that you can do, and they would be able to do that with them. The last thing that I'll mention is that you can take the tubing and put it around the back, attach it and put it around the back of your lower tibia, lean back, and you can use the tube to help. You put a towel so it doesn't dig into your leg. You can kind of use that to help move your tibia forward. That would be it. And then the low back pain thing is I would temporarily reduce the range of motion that in which they're squatting, because my guess from the way you described it is it's once they hit or go below parallel, and they're probably losing their normal lordosis and they're doing the butt wing thing. So, let's practice perfection first in the range of motion that someone can do it and do it pain-free, and then gradually bring it down from there. But I think the drill with the ball behind the back is great. I think the tubing behind the person to assist them. So I go back to the basic teaching that Kyle was showing you today, and stuff I was trying to help out with is those things first. It's the fundamentals. Maybe get the weight off, get rid of the bar. Maybe try popping the dumbbell behind you, so that pushes you into position. So any number of the regressions that you saw here, take the bar away temporarily or use the dowel, because it's usually the weight that brings it out. If the performance isn't perfect and you load, usually you default to something that's not great. And when that happens, you want to push that aside, lighten it, and go back to perfect performance and practice, and then come down lower when we're done. But I suspect from the way you described it, that's probably the case.
Great. Well, thank you for participating today. Hopefully we'll see all of you back tomorrow. Appreciate it.